So what I loved about it, like I came in always, like I came into college thinking I'm a Democrat, my parents are Democrats, this is what I am, I can't be anything else. And then coming into college, just like I was just swamped with so many different political views and opinions that like I felt like I wasn't a Democrat anymore, and I felt like I'd lost my political identity but didn't know what to do about it. And then coming to this today showed me that there's a place that I can belong in politics and a place that I could feel comfortable associating myself with and affiliating myself with, and something that it's like transpartisanship has shown me that there's a place in politics that I can feel politics is something I can feel passionate about again, and that's comforting, and it's amazing to see that there's a way that I can be comfortable in politics and have a place where I can affiliate myself with and not necessarily upset my parents. I love the idea of empathetic listening, and because it's so easy to hear what someone's saying and say, oh, I don't believe it, I don't agree with it, I'm just not going to listen. But really taking in what they say and like taking it with a grain of salt and really trying to see where they're coming from, and like as they discuss like people's desires and knowing like people aren't just saying these things, they actually like they believe in them, and taking that like and respecting that and realizing that like everybody can have their beliefs, and yes, you may not agree with them, but they all have a bit of truth in them. And then I also like the idea of like reading news and listening to things that you don't agree with, just because it's like good to get out of your comfort zone, and it just gets you going, and it expands your mindset, it expands your views. Yeah.
How do you think you can get more people involved with Transpartisan?
Well, I know all of us exchanged email addresses, and we're going to meet before the school year's out to try and start a club of some sorts on campus. So we'll see what happens with that. But like we just had the student government elections, and just seeing the lack of interest in every single student. I think maybe 16% of our student body voted. Like I think that's sad, and I think transpartisanship could be a way to bring everyone back together and get everybody interested again.
Good. Last thing, just tell me your definition of transpartisanship.
Okay, so I came in, I had no idea what that word meant, but
I had no idea
what the word transpartisan meant. Okay, when I came in today, I had no idea what the word transpartisan even meant, and now leaving, I think my personal definition of transpartisan is being comfortable with all political views and being able to come up with compromises that everybody can agree with, and ending the stalemate that is politics right now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, I felt today's events kind of are beginning to challenge the paradigm that there are really two choices that you have, and it's to go right or left. It's something that was discussed pretty heavily today, but I think it's something that we're kind of tuned to from a very early age, is that you're chosen to go one direction or the other, when really individuals are composed of a lot more choices in their life. It's something that kind of has stuck with me, I suppose, here today.
What in particular are some of the transpartisan skills you took away?
I think the biggest skill is is self-reflection. What a lot of times fails to happen is that listening nature, so that you look at what someone else is saying and really internalize that and use it to really change the way you speak. A lot of people go into interactions knowing what they want to say already, don't take into account what's kind of being said back at them to adjust their positions, or even just to learn from in general.
That's good. So, how do you think you should get more people involved in this movement?
I think involvement starts with exposure. This is a good starting place. Some of what was said out there today is that we are sort of a select group of individuals who were either heard about this through maybe a specific avenue, or chose it as something we were ready to get involved in. If you can really kind of broaden that gap to include more people by spreading the information just even generally to the student body, because I know some of the students that are here today are all involved in the same program that I am on campus, but the exposure of it really is sort of a process that I think catches hold, because statistics at least show that a lot of people are fed up with the issue, ready for change.
Last question. So tell me what you think transpartisan means.
I think transpartisan means bridging a gap between what right now is a binary choice. It moves beyond that, but also is kind of within it in a way that you can choose to affiliate Democrat, Republican, but you realize that there are some common grounds there that maybe synthesize like a new ideology, or maybe can exist even between them as they are.
I think I'm taking away a lot of hope for the potential of what we discussed today. I'm taking away some new reflections. I'd already been clued into some of the transpartisanship conversations, but I'm seeing a lot of new applications and sort of starting points for where a lot of this can come from, and feeling hopeful that something will actually come out of this.
Yeah. So what are some of the, I thought the afternoon skill set was an interesting conversation. So what were some of the skill things that you can resonate with that you can use?
I think that the media fast that was talked about and making and intentionally setting out, a goal to not read things that you already agree with, but read things from different perspectives. It's not so much a skill as much as an experiment, but that would cultivate a sort of disposition to critique yourself. I think a lot of these things were about, listening and genuinely trying to understand people, but also being reflective of our own positions. That sort of thing of just taking time to remember that you are a, slanted person, that you questioning, interrogating why you have the positions you have. Is a good skill to have. But I think a lot of these, I have training as a mediator, so a lot of these sorts of things are kind of like review for that sort of, way of communicating. But it's important to remember to bring it back to yourself too.
Yeah, so what do you think are some of the things that we could all do to increase the awareness and understanding of the transpartisan movement?
I think that, talking with people, talking about transpartisanship as a real idea, and helping people understand just the basics of what we mean when we say that is a really important first step, just because when you talk to the average, layperson there and you say transpartisan, they're going to say trans who? So I think just figuring out our sort of elevator speech about what is transpartisanship and finding a way that, we can all kind of agree on what we mean when we're talking about this thing that's still very much information is a good first step.
So the perfect follow-up question, and usually the last one I ask is, so tell me your definition of transpartisanship.
My definition of transpartisanship is still a working definition, but I would say that transpartisanship is a sincere effort to break from a lot of the silos that we've put ourselves in over generations in terms of the way we approach the solutions to society's problems, and making a commitment to coming to those conversations as individuals and as people willing to collaborate, and knowing that we have to collaborate with other people who think differently than us to get through any of the issues that the massive, challenges that we're facing as a race of, beings on the planet. And I think that transpartisanship is really the effort to work with people to solve problems in real ways where we're not trying to win, but we're trying to collaborate.
Excellent.
Well, I'm a peace and conflict studies student, and I want to work to try to change the future of the country and the world for the better. And so this really offered a lot of skills and perspective, but also just hope, because I think for my generation, coming up against huge challenges, economic crises and really challenging power dynamics, it can be intimidating. And this gave me hope that we can find a solution in a new way.
Had you heard of transpartisan before you came here?
I feel like I might have heard the term, but not really.
So now that you've been at this event, what do you think that is? What is transpartisanship?
I think it's recognizing our common humanity, and
I think transpartisanship is.
Oh, sorry. I think transpartisanship is recognizing our common humanity and transcending the differences that we have, or I guess, harnessing the differences that we have to find common ground and find solutions that are beneficial to us all.
The afternoon session focused on a lot of different kinds of skills, or sort of where the rubber meets the road kind of things that you can do. What were some of the ones that really resonated with you?
I really appreciated, let me think for a second. I want to look at my notes now.
Well, let's see. So what were some of there was that 30-day fast thing. There was I'm trying to remember myself. There was the listening with empathy. There was Mark's whole sporting analogy, remember? It's like
Right.
a venue that is...
Right, yeah. Well, I think that having a venue and parties that are, convened neutrally is really beneficial because it provides a security of opinion for people to actually share themselves and share their perspectives without being threatened. And I think a huge part of that is listening with empathy because, like they said, if you're just listening for the purpose of refuting someone, it really doesn't contribute to a conversation at all. You're not going to understand anything. We have a lot to learn from each other. So I think allowing each other to feel secure will prevent defensiveness and learning.
And last one is, how do you think you might get other people involved in this movement? You personally?
Um,
Oh, I'm asking hard questions.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just want to well, I think that this is a movement that it resonates with a lot of people because a lot of Americans are very frustrated right now with the way things are going, and as was mentioned, a lot of millennials don't identify with either party, so it's a really opportune time to try to find another solution and to really transcend the partisan politics. So I will reach out to my family members and my friends and network around me. I think we're trying to get a transpartisan group started here on CU campus and just try to share that perspective and help people understand that if you listen to people and try to learn from them, not only will you benefit, but you can also have more of an effect with your opinion than just trying to batter them with it.
Yeah, today's Transpartisan Leadership Conference was a great opportunity to kind of balance extremes. It was a chance to come together through diversity, people I've never met before, and ultimately reach for a common vision. And that's really what I got out of it. And the most valuable thing today was ultimately the relationships that we culminated with people that I've never met, with people that I've had classes with peers that I've worked with in the past, like Mark and some of the mediators here today. And it was a chance to build relationships around a common goal, and that was ultimately what I got out of it. One of the biggest things I got out of the afternoon today is how we react to diverse opinions. I believe that we hear things that shock us, and we hear things that we aren't expecting, or we hear opposing opinions. And sometimes we immediately react to those opinions, and we don't necessarily absorb them and kind of marinate those opinions with our own, and ultimately grow from them. But controlling the way that we react and the way that we respond to other people so that we can find a common ground and ultimately work on that common ground as opposed to getting caught up in our differences, that's what is incredibly important and one of the valuable aspects I got out of today's discussions. We took a lot of the lessons we learned in the morning and we applied those to the action pieces in the afternoon. And that was a chance for us to kind of learn from those skills that we originally taught and then immediately see how they actually play out.
Great.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, so most people don't know what the word transpartisan means. Mm-hmm. What do you think it means?
I think transpartisan is finding a balance between extremes. I think it's having a shared vision and finding the common ground to achieve that vision. I think it's overriding the extremes and rising above yourself to achieve the goals of many people, which will ultimately benefit the individual.
And are there any particular things that you personally are going to take away that you're going to go out and do to try to evangelize this movement, so to speak?
Sure. So I was actually one of the students who worked with Mark last year at CU originally. And a lot of that was a response to the elections of 2012. I always found myself interested in politics and it was kind of walking this line between what's on the right side and what's on the left side, and where's the truth and where's the actual action, and what can we take away from these lessons that we see. And so I'm looking forward to starting a group here at CU, and it's a group we kind of initiated last year, and now that we have traction with the Center for Transpartisan Leadership, we can really move it forward with the foundation that we've built here, and we've kind of come up with the framework that we're going to be able to implement here at the University of Colorado.
Great. Thank you.
Good to go.
tell me, what is the Mediators Foundation organization doing to promote the whole transpartisan movement?
One of the ways that I think Mediators Foundation sees itself in terms of transpartisanship and the transpartisan movement is sort of a catalyst or a convener of other groups that are on the ground doing real transpartisan work with issues in particular communities. So one of the things that we've realized is that there's a lot of organizations throughout this country, often local organizations, sometimes more regional organizations that are doing amazing transpartisan work, we might say, amazing civic work with their communities. But a lot of those organizations don't know that there are other organizations a state over that's maybe doing similar work. So one of the things that Mediators Foundation would really like to do, in part through the Center for Transpartisan Leadership, is act as a catalyst for those other organizations being able to network with each other and being able to reinforce the work that they're doing. And then also as a way to actually convene them in maybe conferences or gatherings so that there can be some shared knowledge and shared skill sets.
That's great. So, speaking of conferences, this conference today, the whole afternoon was dedicated to like rubber meets the road skill sets that you and I can do to help promote transpartisanship. Which of those or others resonate with you?
Yeah, first I would just say I really appreciated the focus on skills and, as you said, rubber meets the road in some sense in terms of the afternoon talks, because that's something going to other conferences I've been to or other workshops, often that's a question in my mind is, okay, what are the specific skills I can take home to actually be able to impact my community or impact my country? And so I really appreciated that about this particular conference or workshop today, was that focus on skills in the afternoon. Specifically, one of them I really appreciated Michael Ostrolank's suggestion to kind of imagine what our stance is, our political stance, kind of in quotation marks, and be able to think about that as a stance or as a worldview, whereas we tend to think of our political stance as reality itself, right? Or our worldview as reality, but recognizing that there are other worldviews out there that are different. And so if we can kind of take a step back and then have some awareness of our own biases, our own views, how is that one skill that then we can take to dialogue with other people who have different worldviews or different opinions on issues? Transpartisanship is an interesting word in part because I think it's still being defined, and that's actually something that Mediators Foundation has been working to kind of stimulate or catalyze, is thought around the definition of transpartisan and transpartisanship. What does it mean to engage in transpartisanship? What does it mean to be a transpartisan? One of the things in particular that I think is if we contrast to bipartisanship, or let's say a bipartisan agreement on a particular issue, I think sometimes we think of bipartisanship as two sides with very different perspectives coming together and kind of watering down whatever ideas or elements of the legislation there are to some sort of medium ground that is acceptable to both parties, but not necessarily ideal. In contrast, I think transpartisanship encourages, we might say, outside of the box thinking. So an approach to looking at issues that actually invites people to go beyond their particular partisan sense or partisan worldview to consider alternatives or consider approaches that could actually create a fresh solution that both or multiple sides are actually quite happy with and is something that they might not have thought of otherwise.
Great. Don,